In this video, I walk you through basic steps in ICD-10-CM coding. As you may remember from ICD-9, there are three basic steps you need to follow. One, you need to identify your main term in alphabetic index. And then from alphabetic index, identify the subterm that match your site, etiology, or other clinical specification that you have in medical record. Follow the cross-reference instructions in alphabetic index and select your best code. So the code you choose from the index, verify that in a tabular and code to your highest level of specificity based on your instructional notes. For your coding books, the difference between ICD-10-CM and ICD-9 is that we only have two sections, alphabetic index and tabular. So the procedure side that is found in volume 3 of ICD-9 is a different section. It's a different volume that I go over in the next video. So in here we just focus on diagnostic coding, where we have if you have the coding book, you're only going to have two sections, alphabetic index and tabular. Again, so the basic steps is identify the main term, verify the code in the tabular, and assign to the highest level of specificity. Let's go ahead and sign in 3M, which is the program, the encoder we'll be using for this class. So you can use Chrome or Internet Explorer to get to 3m.him.org, and then from there sign in using your VLab sign-in information. After you do that, you should come to the screen that looks like this. Again, because 3M has several modules, I decided to use a module that looks like coding book. So for ICD-9 we use the integrated codebook of ICD-9. For ICD-10 we use this link. So you click here, you have a screen that shows the left side of alphabetic index, and the right side is the tabular list, and then you have several tabs here that we will be using in the future modules. For example, when you're going to do procedures, we're going to click on procedures tab. So let's go back to diagnosis and code a few cases. So we have 4 cases here, and as you may remember from reading the mini lectures, the main thing is to identify your main term. So the first case, we have a patient with chronic hypertrophy of tonsils and adenoids. So we decided to use the main term as hypertrophy as a main term. So we go ahead and type in hypertrophy. So again, when you do misspelling in your index search, you're gonna see a different color that shows up. Once you fix that, it should be green. And then the main term is hypertrophy, and the subterm should be the site or etiology. In this case, the site, which is adenoids with tonsils, and our final code is J35.3. So we always have to verify the code in the tabular. The only instruction notes we have here is exclude notes. We go back to the main category level and we get more instruction notes. So this gives you additional information and things you might code in addition to the hypertrophy of adenoids and tonsils. So if our records showed any of this condition, we could also report those conditions. Let's go ahead and code the next case. In this case, the patient has acute suppurative mastoiditis with subperiosteal abscess. So once you identify your main term, you go to 3M index search, and you type in your main term, mastoiditis. We know that the subterm is acute, that's a condition, and then you look for subperiosteal, which gives you a code with a dash at the end. As you might remember from reading the notes, that means the code is incomplete. So we need to always verify that code in a tabular. So we click there, the system takes us to the tabular. where we choose H70.1019 because we don't know the side of the ear the condition is affecting. Again, always also check your instruction notes. In this case, we don't have an instruction note at the category level or subcategory level. So we good to go with this case. So the final code is H70.019. So the third case, we have a patient with recurrent direct left inguinal hernia with gangrene. So once you identify your main term, in this case, which could be hernia or gangrene, because the other terminology is about clinical types or sites, so either hernia or gangrene. In our case, we choose hernia. So we go again to the alphabetic index, find the hernia term with gangrene, and we get a cross-reference instruction note that says C. That's a mandatory instruction, so we have to see hernia by site with gangrene, and we know that the site is inguinal, so we put hernia again, comma, inguinal, with gangrene, and we know that the gangrene was recurrent, so the subterm of recurrent gives us the final code of K40.41, but we had to verify the code in a tabular. When you go to the tabular, we get our final code with no instruction note, but you always have to go back to your main category, which is in this case K40, and follow further instruction based on the documentation in your record. The next case we consider in this exercise is where a patient has acute upper respiratory infection with influenza. Again, so in this case, we could have two possible main term infection or influenza. So I'm going to actually walk you through the complicated case where we just consider infection as our main term, and to see how the index guides us to the right code. So we type in infection, and we know that this is infection of upper respiratory. So we type in respiratory, and we know it's acute, and the patient has there with influenza. So we get an instruction note. We get this obviously a non-essential modifier, upper or acute, which we knew it's acute in upper respiratory. So this combines both information in our case, acute upper respiratory infection with influenza. So, but we get an instruction note that's mandatory, saying C influenza with respiratory manifestation, NEC, which means there is not otherwise specified anywhere else in index. So what we do then is go back to the index and type in influenza, and that comes with respiratory manifestation as the instruction said, and we arrive to our final code as J11.1, but we always have to verify our coordinate tabular. We click there, we come up with our final code, but with several instruction notes. So for example, use additional code for social pleural effusion. So if that's in the medical record, we'll add the code also. And you also have to always go back to your main category to see if there are further instruction notes you need to consider. In this case, we don't. So our final code is J11.1.